Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Overwatch Weekly. A few things to talk about today, so let's just jump into it. First thing I want to talk about very briefly is this article coming from the Overwatch website, and it is about Echo's audio. This is the kind of like technical game development stuff that I don't really personally care all that much about. But it's interesting if you want to read more about Echo's sound design. I will have a link to it in the description so you can check it out for yourself. But I want to talk about this next topic for a while. And not only for a while, it's also a very kind of connected thing for everything else that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to kind of use this next piece of information, this next thing, as the kind of broad stroke that is going to dictate kind of the rest of what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about this post on r/competitive Overwatch by Jon Spector. If you don't know who Jon Spector is, he is a VP with the Overwatch League. So he's one of the people in charge of actually, running the league. And he made a post on the Overwatch, like I said, competitive Overwatch subreddit. So we are going to talk a bit about that today. And there are certain points where I'm going to jump to other stories to talk about some things that have been going on recently, which I will link to separately in the link in the description. So let's go through this little message from Jon Spector. Hey, Overwatch League fans. We have the best fans in the world, and I want you to hear directly from us on a range of topics we've seen from our community and talk about what's coming next for OWL. Prepare for a wall of text accordingly. First section is 2020 season plans. We were all so excited about homestands in 2020. The first several went better than we could have hoped for, too. The feedback we received from attendees has been amazing, and we do think there is a lot to build on when these events are able to resume. That said, responding to COVID-19 the right way and prioritizing the health and safety of our players, fans, staff, and partners meant shifting to online matches immediately, and that's been a bumpy road in a lot of ways. We think the production quality has gotten a lot better as we've worked through new workflows, and we're pushing hard to bring back things like player cameras that will make the show even better. We're also super excited about the new tournament structure for May, and assuming that goes well, we hope to do something similar for June and July as well, perhaps with some tweaks to the specific tournament structures. As we head into August and September, our goal remains gathering the teams in one place where we can run an expanded playoffs and grand finals to culminate the season. We're still working on options for playoffs format and structure, but believe it's important to qualify in more teams to account for the fact that teams will likely finish the regular season with very different strengths of schedule in terms of their opponents. So I want to talk about this section first. The first thing I want to say is, yes, it's unfortunate that COVID-19 has obviously derailed all of the plans that they had, and things are so different now that how could we have ever, how could anyone have ever predicted any of this to happen? So it's unfortunate the position that we're in, but we are in this position, and there's not really anything else we can do about it. In terms of the player cams, trying to get those to come back, they've started to kind of get things going where they have like a camera set up in team offices or team houses and facilities, and you get to at least see a little bit from the players. And we've also seen some interviews make their return. So we're starting to get some of that stuff back, which I'm starting to like, and I'm enjoying that a lot more than I thought that I would. I did miss that kind of stuff, though maybe not as much as the matches themselves. It's certainly not something that I need to see in the Overwatch League, and I need to see in all the matches, but it is a lot nicer when you actually have something to look at, so I do like that. On the topic of the May tournament, I've already talked about that in a video. You can check that out on my channel, and I'll link it in the cards. But talking about the August, September goal of trying to get every team in one place. I think that's super important. At this point in time, I think you have to end the season where everybody's together. That may not be able to happen with COVID-19 and the way things are going on. You may not be able to have an official like grand finals of every team having played through a playoff, but I think, and I could be wrong, but I think that it should be possible to get all the teams in one place. In theory, things are starting to look better. We're not quite there yet, but things are starting to look better in terms of the COVID-19 situation. So hopefully we start to see more improvements and we get to the point where we can have all the teams playing together. But I think the expanded playoffs is very important. I think bringing in 10 to 12 teams as opposed to 8 teams is the smart thing to do. Yes, that's over half of the league if you do 12 teams, but just based on the strength of schedule, I think 12-team format just works better. 12 teams, you give a bye potentially. Even possibly if you really wanted chaos to do 16 teams, you could, but I think 12 is probably fine. Maximum 10 minimum. But if you're going to expand it, you have to do 10 to 12, I think, and do buys. But buys obviously can be a little bad, and they were an issue in the first season. But overall, I think that is a good goal. So this 2020 season plans part, all in all, I agree with you, John. Moving on to the next section is viewership and viewership rewards. Here they say we made the decision to move to YouTube because we believe in the long-term potential of the partnership, though we fully expected some challenges as we worked to transition our audience that had spent years watching us on Twitch. YouTube has some amazing tech, particularly around VOD. We believe a solid VOD system allows our global fan base to more easily watch Overwatch League matches at convenient local times. YouTube remains committed to working with us to deliver an amazing viewing experience for you and help us win over new fans around the world. We are not satisfied with where things are today, so we are working with YouTube to improve discoverability of our content while looking at other changes to build excitement and raise the stakes. The May tournament is a good example of a change in response to that feedback. And I'm excited to share that we are a few weeks away from bringing back token drops for watching on OverwatchLeague.com and our mobile app. Viewership rewards on YouTube's platform are still being worked on, but we're excited to have some form of viewership incentives for fans very soon. One other bright spot for us here is that we're setting records for Overwatch League viewership in Asia now that some matches are being prime time there, and the enthusiasm from the fans there has been really great to see. So this is obviously a topic that going into the season was really, really, really big because a lot of people were very disappointed to see the Overwatch League moving away from Twitch and onto YouTube. I personally, and I've made my opinions on this very clearly, I personally enjoy the switch over to YouTube. I'm not a Twitch person. I don't watch a lot of Twitch. The only times I ever watched Twitch were for Overwatch League matches. There's a couple streamers here and there who I may tune into their streams if they're on. But the only times I was watching Twitch were for the Overwatch League and for whenever the Overwatch events were going on, so drops and whatnot were going on, where you could watch Twitch streams. And even then, I just had it on in the background so I could get the drops. I don't watch Twitch. For me, YouTube is much better. I think the VOD system on YouTube is much better. I think the quality of the streams are much higher. And I think that as a whole, it makes all the Overwatch League content so much more accessible for me because you have videos getting uploaded to YouTube and you have the streams going on YouTube. I think cross-platform, it's a lot better. I use my Switch a lot for watching stuff, YouTube especially. Twitch is not on the Switch. The only thing that is on the Switch at the moment is YouTube. Now, I'm hoping eventually, of course, stuff like Netflix or Twitch does make their way to the Switch. But for now, it's only YouTube. And on my phone, it's much easier to watch YouTube than Twitch. I mean, I have both apps, but I like YouTube better on mobile. I think it works a lot better. But overall, I think YouTube is a better system. But I'm really glad that they're saying they're not happy where things are, because there are things on YouTube that are not as good. The discoverability on YouTube is very, very focused towards VOD content as opposed to live streamed content. So Overwatch League matches don't really get the time of day that they would when the games are being streamed over on Twitch. So that is something that certainly needs to be improved because it is currently not in a great spot. And it's difficult to find them if you're not already subscribed to the Overwatch League. There's no homepage that shows you here's where you need to go. And I think a lot of that could just come down to a better way to access the Overwatch League from the in-game client. I think that would be a lot better as well. I also like that they're bringing drops back, even if it's only on OverwatchLeague.com and the mobile app. Eventually, I hope they come back through YouTube. I don't really need drops right now, but I might, go to the website to watch the streams just to start getting them. But I think the biggest thing, and one of the things that people have missed, right, with the move from Twitch to YouTube and the switch to having matches played at international times, the Overwatch League becomes much more accessible to other regions because the matches aren't being streamed at these ridiculous hours for them. So I think we look at the numbers changing. There is certainly a reason for those numbers changing. It comes down to the fact that we're talking about Asian matches being played at hours now that are within reason, when before they were not. They were being played at hours that they couldn't really watch. Now they can. I think that helps out a lot. If you look at some of the recent matches and you look at the VODs, right, of the streams themselves, not of just the matches as they were chopped down so you could watch them, right? You look at something like the specific, we look at the specific matches, right? The full match for the Toronto Defiant versus the LA Gladiators had 40,000 views. Not as great. And, the stream itself from that day, 329,000 views, right? So matches that people care about tend to get more views. Florida versus Boston only had 13,000, whereas Chengdu versus New York had 55,000. Philadelphia versus Paris had 42,000. You look at the late night matches, right? They had 150,000, so a little less than half of what the normal or North American matches had. The matches on Saturday had 391,000. The overnight matches had 187,000. So once again, around half. But that's to be expected. It's fewer matches, and it's also at hours that don't really make a lot of sense. But the VOD content, I think, is really what they want. And the other thing that we don't really look at or think about or talk about is the fact that we also have to realize that there's international streams. There's streams that are in different languages that we're not always talking about when we talk about the English streams. I don't know what the views are like on those. I don't know what they were like, but it's certainly something we have to talk about when we talk about the future of the Overwatch League. Views are still good when you look across the different platforms. And you have to realize that in China, for example, it's not on YouTube, it's on other platforms. Bilibili, I believe, is where it's streamed. So things are very different depending on where you're watching. So I think that the numbers are misleading. Advertising is also doing very, very well. They're getting Xfinity, they're getting Pringles, they're getting Cheez-Its, they're still have State Farm. They're making plenty of money through advertisements. But let's talk about the next category, which is a big one, and that is player retirements. Here, Jon says, OWL features the best approximately 200 Overwatch League or Overwatch players in the world, many of whom have previous professional experience from other games like Counter-Strike, Team Fortress 2, and League of Legends. Players falling in love with other games and choosing to pursue them is a choice we understand, but obviously it's disappointing to see a top player like Sinatra leave competitive Overwatch. He had an incredible season last year, and I've personally loved watching him compete at the highest level. I hope he and all former Overwatch League pros find continued success in whatever they do next. I'll also note, since this seems to be one of the questions we've gotten asked the most since Sinatra retired, that we do plan to release the skin celebrating his MVP performance from last year. This skin is something we know he, along with our fans and players, have been looking forward to, so we will release it as planned in the next few months. It's an awesome skin, and we can't wait to share it with everyone. We also know from talking to our players and teams that COVID-19 has placed an incredible amount of stress on many of them. Competing at the highest level during a scary situation when you can't interact with your teammates and are in many cases far from home and family is really challenging. We and our teams have worked hard to support players, including things like providing free world-class health and wellness resources, but I do expect more players will make difficult decisions to prioritize things other than their professional careers in this environment. We wish them all the best and understand and respect those decisions. They'll always be a part of the Overwatch esports family. Now, I obviously made a whole video talking about Sinatraa recently, so I don't want to go too much into detail about this here. The Sinatraa information, of course, the MVP skin is great to hear, but I talked about Sinatraa all last week, so I won't go into detail about that here today. With Jon talking about COVID-19 and players retiring, part of this statement you have to take with a grain of salt. A big reason why we're seeing potentially players from Tier 2 and Tier 3 and also in the Overwatch League retiring is because of Valorant. A new game has come out that competes with Overwatch when there wasn't really a new game competing with Overwatch before then. That's a big reason why we're seeing a ton of player retirements, is because now there's a competition when there wasn't that before. But also, it's the kind of thing where in the Tier 2 scene, we're seeing a lot of players leave, right? In terms of Overwatch League, we're not really seeing much of a difference in terms of players retiring who are in the Overwatch League between this season and last season, right? And 2018, right? Like, yeah, there's some, maybe a little more than usual, but it's about normal, right? Last season, Fran retired during the season, Asher retired during the season, Pine retired after the season. This season, we've seen Sinatraa retire. We've seen Kelix retire. I don't know who else we've seen retire from the Overwatch League. But it hasn't been a ton. So it's been about normal compared to where we were in the past couple of seasons. But we're certainly seeing a lot more retirements coming out of the Tier 2, Tier 3 scene, which is certainly where there is some concern. But at the end of the day, like, we're in such an unprecedented time and things are so weird that you can't really take what's happening in the world surrounding COVID-19 and say that this is proof that Overwatch is dying. People are going to make decisions about their real life in the face of what's going on, and you're going to have to kind of accept that, right? Yes, Valorant is coming out, and that's a huge thing that is drawing players away, and I think you can't deny that. But also, we are in the middle of COVID-19, and that in and of itself is another thing that is making people make career changes. Not a whole lot you can do about that. It is what it is. Let's talk about these next 3 things that are on here, because these are things that I mentioned earlier that I want to kind of branch out to talk about other things. I know this is going to be a longer episode of Overwatch Weekly, but we're almost there. This next thing is about Tier 2 and Path to Pro. Here, Jon says, I also want to talk a little bit about Tier 2 and Tier 3 competitive Overwatch. We've heard a lot of feedback from players, organizations, and the community about the Path to Pro ecosystem. While the system has produced many exciting Overwatch League players over the last few years, we know it hasn't met many other goals that we all have for this part of the pro scene. Our Path to Pro team is actively exploring potential changes to the model. One early idea we think has a lot of potential is running more community tournaments, as we believe the recent Breakable Barriers and Echo tournaments were very successful and fun for the broader competitive community. So I'm glad that Jon is acknowledging that the Tier 2, Tier 3 scene isn't very good, and that it has a lot of problems. I also find it very interesting that he talks about running more community tournaments is something they want to do, because it just so happens that 2 days ago, as of when you're getting this video, there was a major community tournament run completely by the community with Fran's Overwatch Community Cup. I didn't watch the whole tournament. I watched some of the finals. I was kind of busy that day. I was also gaming that day, so I kind of forgot about it. But I'll have a link in the description with an article that covers the whole thing. But what we saw were a bunch of contenders teams competing. You had Team Doge, which is made up of the former Team Envy. You had Triumph, Young and Beautiful, Sky Foxes, Shoes Money Crew, Scion Esports, Maryville Saints, Karasuno, Odyssey, Mind Freak, Hype Unit, Noble, Old Man Strength, Golden Gophers, Savages 4.0. I may have missed a team, but I think that was all of them. They all competed in this tournament. It was a very successful tournament. The Overwatch Twitter account retweeted the tournament. Overwatch League teams are tweeting about the tournament. It was a major, major success. These are the types of things that I think you have to push if you're the Tier 2 scene, if you are the Contenders Twitter account, if you are the Overwatch League. Endorse these types of tournaments, right? If Fran comes to you and says, hey, I want to run a community tournament featuring Contenders teams from North America, from Europe, from wherever, right? Maybe, you can do that, and maybe they say, okay, we'll give you some money, you can run this tournament, and we'll endorse it, right? But these are the kinds of things that the Overwatch League and the Contender system should 100% be endorsing, because it was a huge success. It was all over, and I think it was literally the best thing that's happened in the Tier 2 scene since I've watched, ever, except for maybe the Gauntlet, which I thought was another great thing. I think more community tournaments is a great thing to do, and I think endorsing community-run tournaments is also a very good thing to do, because that would make, I think, the best Tier 2 scene imaginable. As I said, I'll have a link in the description so you can read more about Fran's Overwatch Community Cup in the description. But let's talk finally about hero pools, where Jon Spector says that the Overwatch dev team posted a longer update about hero pools, which we all believe is another positive revision for the system for OWL. Hopefully you've all seen that this is a system we will continue to refine and improve in response to feedback. This video is getting a little long, so I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible, but they have made some changes to the Overwatch League hero pool system, as well as the overall hero pool system, and there are a few major things about it. 3 major things. The first is that hero pools will now use Overwatch League data, so no more high-level competitive play. It's only going to be based off of Overwatch League data. The reasoning behind this is essentially that when we're seeing Mei and Reaper dominate the Overwatch League, but they're not getting any play in competitive, it's a problem for them. So they are changing it so that it's only Overwatch League data. They are refining the algorithm, meaning that they are going to make it so that there's less of a ping pong, right? Heroes have a higher chance of being removed. Now, one thing I want to say on this is we did see some success with this, with the DPS rotation for this week being Ashe and Reaper, but I still think something that is potentially worrisome is the fact that we could still see some issues with DPS heroes not getting put into the pool just because there's so many of them, and the threshold they have to hit is so much, or is as low as the other roles. But because there's so many more heroes, it's so much more spread out. But by changing it over to the Overwatch League, I don't think that should be a problem, because I expect only a handful of damage heroes to ever get played. So it shouldn't be an issue, but I'm glad they're refining the algorithm so that it's no longer 25, it's not 10 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 up. I think it's just like, it's like 10 to 35, 35 to 65, 65 and up, something like that. But I think it's a good change. And the final thing, which I love more than anything else, is that hero pools will now only be for masters and grandmasters. No more bronze hero pools, silver hero pools, gold hero pools, plat or diamond hero pools. If you are in any of those ranks, rejoice. You no longer have to deal with hero pools ever again. They're gone forever. Masters and grandmasters matches will be the only matches that will have hero pools. Any match with an average skill rating of 3,500 or higher will have hero pools, which I think this is a good change. I think that having hero pools in the lower ranks was just bad. I think it just didn't help anything, because those players don't really know how to play. they don't play the meta anyway, so it didn't really do anything. So it really made no sense to have them there. So those are the major changes. If you want to read more about them, link is in the description as always. The final thing that Jon Spector talks about is a little secret that I will link as well in the description. But as he says, "You're so appreciative of your continued support for the Overwatch League. We strive to be a fan-first league, and this is something we're going to do more of to better communicate with you directly." And then he links out to the little secret story that I have linked in the description that you've probably seen. I tweeted about it a lot. It was pretty good. But that was Jon's post, and I think that it was a very good post. I don't agree with everything that he said, right? I think there were some things he didn't touch upon, the Valorant situation with the player retirements. The YouTube viewership obviously is down. He mentioned they're not happy with it. I think what more can you really ask for from him there? The tier 2 and Path to Pro stuff, I think I would have liked a little more about it. He didn't really say a lot there. Hero pools, I don't think he needed to say much because he said what he had to say, and there was a post there for that. And I thought the 2020 season plans was a pretty good and promising section. So overall, I think that this was a very good post from Jon, and I'm really glad we got this post from Jon. I think it really does help us get a better idea of where the Overwatch League is going. And I'm really glad that this is something we have to look at and talk about, because I think it shows us a lot about the Overwatch League going forward, but also Overwatch as a game going forward, and Overwatch as a community going forward. That we are going to hopefully get more community tournaments. These are ones that are going to be official League run or Overwatch run, Blizzard run tournaments. But also, if we can get more stuff like what Fran did, I would be very happy as well. The hero pools changes I really like. I was going to make a video that was going to go out actually yesterday, criticizing the hero pool system and giving my thoughts on how you could fix it. And then they basically did everything that I would have wanted them to do to fix it. So now I don't really have a video to talk about. So now you're only getting this. But I'm going to end this video off here because it is very long. If you have any more thoughts in the or on any of this, please comment down below. But I wanted to talk about everything that I wanted to talk about today. If you enjoyed this video and you want more like this, but mostly shorter, consider liking and subscribing, as it helps out a lot. But I'm going to get out of here. Thank you once again. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Hope you're all staying safe, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.